Hey, friends all over the world. Listen, I want to tell you the shocking truth behind the Barbie movie. Now, first of all, like I've said many times before, I believe that things in the culture are relevant for discussion. A lot of people don't want to talk about these things, but I feel like we need to discuss them because they are very, very germane to the culture. Now, I grew up with, I grew up in the age where there were Ken dolls and Barbie dolls, and, my sisters had Barbie dolls, and your cousins have Barbie dolls. I remember Barbie dolls as a kid. It's been a brand that's been around for a very, very, very long time. And of course, as of recently, they started making Barbie cartoons, Barbie series, all this kind of stuff about Barbie. And of course, Barbie has always been a symbol of vanity, a symbol of, materialism, that kind of thing. She's blonde hair, blue eyes, and she has the latest fashion, da 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 da. That's Barbie. Okay, they even started getting into different colors of Barbie dolls and all this kinds of stuff. So Barbie is a thing that most of you know about. We know about Barbie. It's a part of the culture, et cetera, et cetera. So as you know, the Barbie movie that was released was a live action Barbie film, and it was targeted toward children and young adults. Because again, this is a brand that is popular amongst children. And this film has allegedly grossed $1 billion in like a very, very short time. In fact, they're saying it's one of the most blockbuster films this year, maybe even in many, many, many years. It really went even beyond the expectations of the studios. Okay? And some of you are coming. I already said there's a black Barbie. There was a black Barbie. Anyway. So anyway, but here's what I want to tell you about this film and about why we need to be very discerning as parents and very discerning as individuals. There is a very strategic agenda as it relates to children. Now, I'm going to tell you something. We can talk about all kinds of social things. We can talk about sexuality. We can talk about rights, and we can talk about who's this and that. But let me tell you something. What a lot of us are not talking about is the fact that this entire campaign of engineering the consciousness of children is very, very real. This stuff is targeted toward the most vulnerable of our population. Let me tell you something. If you want to be whatever you want to be, then that's on you, and you should be able to do that freely. You should also be able to freely receive the consequences of any decision. I believe that whatever you want to do, you should be able to do freely as long as it does not obstruct or endanger someone else. But you should also be free to accept and to receive the consequences of whatever choice you decide to make. But here's what I'm trying to tell you. When we look at children, children are the most vulnerable of our society. And yet there has been a deliberate effort to brainwash, to socially engineer, to manipulate, and, watch this, to rewrite our children, to rewrite their conscience. There is a very, very deliberate and diabolical attempt to redefine masculinity. Now, this is really interesting because there is an assault, particularly on biblical masculinity. And now, in this age of redefining things, we are now redefining terms. So, for example, let me ask you this. What if I told you that the definition of light was antiquated? That's outdated. They didn't have LED back in the day. They didn't have fluorescent light bulbs. They didn't have the technology that we have. So, to use the word light is really outdated. We need to come up with a new word. And so we say those aren't lights, those are marshmallows. Yeah, see, turn on the marshmallows. Could y'all turn down the marshmallows? Well, what about, but marshmallows is already a word. Well, yeah, well, we need to change that word. Let's call marshmallows hush puppies. Okay, well, all right, well then, but what about the actual hush puppies, the little fried balls of dough? What are we going to call those? Well, let's call those Cadillacs. And you can see the conundrum. It's a never-ending conundrum, a never-ending psychological conundrum. And honestly, it's a mess. Why can't light be light? Because the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20, I believe, if I don't want to get the scripture reference wrong, it says, woe be unto them that call evil good and good evil, who conflate light for dark and dark for light. I know we're having a lot of talk about what a man is and what a woman is and all this kinds of stuff. And there's people from various liberal communities that may say, well, you sound like you're about to say something hateful. I just feel like you're propagating hate. So here it is again. Any disagreement with something is labeled as hate. So if you label everything as hate, any disagreement with something that is a narrative being pushed or something that is, a hot topic of the day, then how can we have any discussions? And the answer is the question. How can we have any discussions? We can't. They don't want to have any discussions. They are pushing something down your throat, whether you accept it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. There is a call to biblical masculinity in our society, that God is raising up men according to the biblical definition of a man. And that's not about hairstyles. It's not about shoes. It's not about shirts. It's not about glasses or anything like that. But the biblical definition of a man is found in Genesis chapter 2. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let him or them, male and female, have dominion. Right? Man was given three responsibilities. He was to be the priest, he was to be the protector and the provider. The priest, the protector, and the provider. But what is kin? Kin is a man who is highly, highly docile. He is docile. He is at Barbie's beck and call to do whatever she wills. He is following her leadership, following after her. That there is literally a rewriting of the foundational definitions of what something is. And my question is, when will we as not only human beings, but as parents say, you know what? Enough is enough of this. Why do we take our children to see these movies? Why do we endorse these movies? Why do we advance this Jezebelic agenda to emasculate society and to redefine manhood? We already have a shortage of men. For example, in South Africa, there are 9 million fatherless children. 9 million fatherless children. Children who don't have fathers, not because their fathers are dead, not because their fathers are going away to war. Their fathers live in the same city in some instances and won't take care of their children. There is a dearth of men in society. In fact, every major woe in society is connected to the absence of men. The absence of men. Every major woe in society is connected to the absence of men. That men being the foundation of culture, the foundation of society, historically, when they are absent, look at fatherlessness in our communities. Fatherlessness is one of the leading contributors to childhood illiteracy, childhood dropout rate, childhood substance abuse, childhood crime, childhood unemployment. the Father, the presence or absence of the Father. Don't you see what's going on? Don't you see how they want to exemplify something that does not represent truth and definitely doesn't represent biblical values? Now, I know I'm going to get some backlash for this because the agenda is so strong that they have convinced you that any disagreement with the agenda is an act of hatred, and nobody's standing up. Nobody's saying anything because half of the folks are scared. Pastors won't say anything. Preachers won't say anything because we have been enslaved by the fear of being canceled. The fear of cancellation is the new slavery in our society. That if you say something that they don't want you to hear, that they don't want you to say, they'll say, "Man, we're gonna cancel you. You know, you're hateful. You're full of hate, sir. You're full of hate." Well, let me ask you this. How do we know the definition of hatred? If the definition of a man and a woman is subject to interpretation, why is not the definition of hatred subject to interpretation? I'm going to ask that again. If the definition of a man or a woman is subject to societal interpretation, if it's just a social construct, if gender is a social construct, then why isn't hate a social construct? If gender doesn't exist, how can you hate a particular gender? How can you hate something that doesn't exist? Does hate even exist? Isn't that just a social construct? Isn't that subject to a person's interpretation? What may be hateful for me may not be hateful for you. What may be hateful for me is not hateful for you. Who are you to determine what's hate? I think it's love. I think it's love. How do you say it's hate? Okay, I tell you this. I identify as loving. Regardless of how hateful you interpret my comments, I identify as a loving person. No, my words identify as truth. See, are we really going to have this conversation? Is anybody bold enough to say that this is utter and complete nonsense? Is anybody bold enough to address this? And Facebook, before you come for me to cancel me, I better not get a letter. I better not get anything. I better not get a notification. This video better not be flagged, because if it is, I'm coming for you. Because somebody has to stand up for the rights of free speech. And the rights of free speech are also predicated upon the rights of free opinion. I have a right to believe what I want to believe. I have a right to believe the Bible. I have a right to believe in truth. I have a right to believe in societal norms. I have a right to believe this. And no one can strip this from me. Nobody can strip this from me. The hypersexualization and the indoctrination with vanity of our children is a serious issue, along with many other issues connected to this. That our young girls, little 4-year-old girls, are being encouraged to wear makeup, to be vain, to spend all of their time in the mirror, to worry about their body. There's this body shaming that's happening. And there is this self-hatred that is being engendered in young girls, because there is an agenda to not only emasculate society, but also to objectify women. Now, women are purported as objects. They're purported as only as valuable as their looks. That if you're not pretty, if you don't have long hair, if you don't have a certain color eyes, if you don't have a certain skin complexion, you are not acceptable in society. And this is brainwashing our children. This is brainwashing young girls. And this is encouraging a very self-destructive mentality in young people. When will we stand up? When will we say no to the manipulation? No When will we say, no, we don't accept this? When will we say, no, 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 we're not going to allow our children to watch this. We're not going to allow our children to be brainwashed. We're not going to allow our children to be manipulated. We're going to take responsibility as parents and teaching our children right from wrong. We're going to be responsible as parents and teaching our children what is and what is not. We're going to be responsible as a society and protect the most vulnerable of our population. The most vulnerable of our population must be protected. And we must stand up. And I want to encourage every single person to share this video without shame, to share this video without fear, to share this video without the threat of intimidation or the threat of cancellation. You have freedom as a not only United States citizen, but there are inalienable rights as a human being afforded to every single human being on this planet. The freedom of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We need to understand that God is raising up a remnant in these last days. And it's made up of you. You are the remnant, I believe, who will say, you know what? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're going to teach our young men to be godly men, to be fathers, to be priests, to be protectors and providers, to teach them what it means to protect our young women, to teach them what it means to protect our young girls, to teach them what it means to be responsible men, to serve their community as good citizens, to serve their society, and to be pillars in their community, and to be present in their homes. We're going to teach men to walk in authority and not to be docile and fearful and intimidated. We're going to teach our young men to stand up and be counted and be who they were created to be by God. We're going to teach our women to be honorable, to be respectful, to be women of integrity, women of truth, women of righteousness who submit to godly authority. And yes, it may seem antiquated and outdated, but I believe it's absolutely true. And I want you to share this video right now with everybody you know. And remember that Jesus is Lord.